Hey guys, what's happening? Aaron here. So, we finally get to the big one. The main review that I've been wanting to do this entire time. I've been doing video game reviews. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now, originally I'd wanted to do this video or have it uploaded for Christmas time last year, and it's now May of 2015, and I'm just getting around to it right now. So, I got a little bit behind, is putting it mildly, but I'm very, very excited to finally be doing this review and to share it with you guys out there. This review for me is very special because this is my most favorite game of all time. I have been playing it ever since it came out back in 1997 on the original PlayStation. And I know a lot of you feel the same way and really like this game. I don't know about you personally, but I consider it to be the best Castlevania out of all of them. Second place usually goes to Castlevania 3 or Super Castlevania 4, depending on, my mood at the time. Usually I'll go to Castlevania 3 as my second favorite. But this will be a very in-depth review. As I said before, I've been doing these reviews for almost 3.5 years now, and I've been waiting since day one to do this review and to share it with everybody. And I hope I do it justice. I really do, because like I said, it's my favorite game. It's my favorite Castlevania, and I'm hoping I'm not leaving anything crucial out. I tried to hit all the bases as best I could, but if I really wanted to go overboard, I could have made this review, a half an hour long, an hour, 2 hours long. But I don't think anybody really wants to sit through a 2-hour review video. So anyway, just a short introduction by me. Thank you for watching. As always, thank you for subscribing. Sit back and enjoy this video. I had a blast making it, and I hope you enjoyed as well. So take care. There have been many great video games released in the time I've been a gamer. Some have stood the test of time, others, while fun when they came out, really haven't lasted that long in retrospect. This also applies to franchises as well. In times gone by, there have been many great games that I've played, some even becoming favorites. Games like Adventure Island 2, Super Metroid, Final Fantasy X, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, just to name a few. Now there's one very specific game I didn't mention, and that's for a good reason. How does one describe perfection? I guess it would depend mostly on who you ask, as everyone has a different answer. There is a very specific game, released on the original PlayStation, way back in the late 90s, that for me, holds this very important distinction. In the 18 years since the game was released, it has easily become my favorite of all time as a gamer since the mid-80s. Where does one even begin to describe something on this level? From the top-notch graphics, to the soaring symphonic score, to the plentiful enemies, amazingly designed bosses, to the weapons, to the spells, to the castle design, to just everything. Here's hoping I can try to do it justice. Rewinding the clock back, and in 1997, Konami released Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the original PlayStation. Beginning in the year 1792 in Romania, you take control of Richter Belmont during the final stage of Castlevania Rondo of Blood. Yes, I know it says Bloodlines, and this confused a lot of people back in the day, especially Castlevania fans. Most people misunderstood that it was the final level of Bloodlines, the Sega Genesis game. This is untrue, as the name Bloodlines refers to the connecting of the storylines, not the name of the stage or the game it comes from. Well, that and the obvious fact that Richter wasn't even a playable character in Bloodlines in the first place. But anyways, I remember when I played the game for the first time and this level loaded, I freaked. Then the music kicks in as you ascend the grand staircase, and it was like, holy shit. And then, as you run, there's the giant clock tower in the background that rotates in 3D as you pass by it. You pass through an outer room and enter Dracula's chamber. Now, it's been said ad infinitum at this point, but here's where the awful dialogue begins. There's some dialogue exchanged, including the famous, "What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. Continue review." You face off against Dracula, and it's a lot of fun. You'll notice Dracula has 2 life bars, because like other titles in the series, he has 2 forms during the fight. Once you deplete the first gauge, Dracula transforms into his second form, a giant demon, and the background melts away into a large vortex. Now, there are 2 main ways this fight can end, but regardless, it's impossible to die here. Either you defeat Dracula and are given certain perks when the game starts, or once you're close to dying, Maria, from Rondo of Blood also, shows up and using her spirit power animals, juices Richter up. So much so that now you're invincible for the remainder of the fight.
No, it cannot be!
You deliver the crushing blow and Dracula is defeated once again. You're then given a story epilogue, explaining what happened after the battle, with Richter disappearing and Maria setting off to look for him. Meanwhile, Alucard, Dracula's son, the same Alucard from Castlevania 3, awakens from his eternal slumber, Castlevania reappears, and all forces are drawn to it. So the setup is complete, and the grandest adventure of all time is about to begin. This game hits the ground running, quite literally. You begin outside the castle walls, rushing toward it, owls flying through the trees, as Alucard leaps over the raising drawbridge. Now, if this kind of entrance doesn't scream fucking awesome, I don't know what does. Well, I mean, compared to the majority of entrances to the castle and other Castlevanias, you make your way forward and encounter simple enemies. The classic ghouls, giant wolves, and even mermen. Awesomely, you'll also notice that the first 3 sections of the game are a throwback to the classic games in the series, with the castle's outer area, the inner hallways, and the undergrounds being represented respectively. Even on the last room of this starting area, a throwback to the original, as there is a hidden chicken in the same block as it would be in the first boss battle. Arrgh! Chicken, turkey, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it's a piece of meat in a block, got it?
What is is your business here?
In the next section, you're frozen in your tracks, and Death appears. He asks that you knock your shit off, and Alucard isn't having any of it. As penalty, Death removes all your badass gear, leaving you with just your bare fists. What? You thought Alucard was that badass just normally? Well, I mean, not saying he isn't, but, you know, it's a game. Don't fret, you'll get it back in time. Now that all your gear has been removed, the only thing you have to fight with is your fists. But that only lasts a room or two. You eventually get your first true weapon, a short sword. Yes, there are no whips in this game, and more so, since Alucard is not a Belmont, no vampire killer. Seems like something simple, but this is just the first of many alterations to the classic formula that Symphony of the Night pulled off in style. You'll acquire many swords along your journey, both one-handed and two-handed. Many also have special attack moves as well. But I'll come back to weapons a little later. As you venture further into the interior of the castle, you'll travel through many different environments. Speaking of which, one of the main reasons this game receives the attention and notoriety that it does is because of non-linearity. In previous Castlevania adventures, your progression was strictly linear, straightforward. You could choose different paths along the way, but your motion was always forward. Symphony blew the door off the hinges, and that you can go anywhere you want in the castle. Well, for the most part. Besides the intro, the entire game takes place inside the castle. From the elegant beginning area to the long library, to the royal chapel, and the underground caverns. The environments are varied, and each one has its own feeling and atmosphere, as well as their own secrets and enemies. As you kill enemies, you gain experience and occasionally items. Another aspect that Symphony changed again is the addition of RPG elements. In previous titles, how you started the game is how you're going to finish it. Here, as you progress, you gain experience points, which in turn boost your stats, adding additional HP and other attributes like defense and luck. Scattered about the castle's many rooms, you'll also find HP and heart potions, which boost those as well. On top of this dynamic, once again, a first in the series, are the equipable items. These range from weapons like swords, spears, and different rods, to cloaks, shields, armor, and even certain jewelry. This gives the player a tremendous amount of freedom and customization, depending on how they play or what they'd like to do. The majority of gear you gain comes from enemy drops, finding it, or lastly, buying it from the librarian. Now this crazy old fucker, let me tell you. Once you make it to the library on the eastern side of the castle, you run into him. Besides Dracula, he seems to be the only other resident. At first he doesn't want to help you, but like most humans, he's greedy. So you throw a little bling bling at him, and he'll sell you his soul. He sells a variety of weapons, potions, and other things like maps, which reveal certain sections of the castle you haven't explored yet. You can also sell rare gems you come across in your travels to him for money. There are a few tricks you can do with him, but I'll come back to that later. Continuing on about items. Along the way, you'll come across these things which look like playing cards floating in the air. These become your familiars in the game, kinda like little helper friends. They mostly just attack enemies for you, but the demon can press switches for you that would otherwise be unreachable. Also, the fairy can heal you should your HP get low, and you have a spare potion in your inventory. I usually use the sword familiar the most, and it's also good for a nifty trick to get outside the castle, but I'll come back to that later. Running around in the castle, you'll come across multitudes of enemies, from classics like bats, skeletons, and fleamen, to newer additions like Cthulhu, Frozen Shades, and the Skull Lord. Again, all enemies in the game are highly detailed. Even a lot of the death animations are great to watch. And that's what you'll hear me mention a lot during this review. It's the details in this game that still amaze me. I can't really talk about the enemies without talking about the bosses. They are some of the best you will ever see in any Castlevania. They have some returners like a giant bat, and Slogrun Gaibin from Super Castlevania 4. The majority of the others are new though. Some of the greats are Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, where huge chunks of his body breaks off, Olrox, who transforms into a giant lizard, Scylla, Legion, a giant sphere made of dead bodies, and of course, motherfucking Galamoth. You also fight evil versions of Grant, Sypha, and Trevor from Castlevania 3, and yet another throwback. Speaking of Galamoth, he is the hardest boss in the game, but all is not lost, because he is optional. But goddamn is he hard. He has the highest HP of any boss in the game, even higher than Dracula. It's more of a personal challenge than anything, because your only prize for beating this fucker is the third miss power, and mental happiness, I guess. That's it. The visual style of this game is outstanding, on every level possible. From the animation fluidity of characters and enemies, to 3D effects, to scaling and rotation of sprites, translucency, and even possibly the greatest visual effect in the game, the Holy Chapel background. This room, oh my god, I could spend all day in this room. It's my favorite in the entire game, and I'd assume a lot of other fans' favorite as well. There's beautiful light shining through the stained glass windows in the background, and the angle of the light changes as you move around. It's a fantastic example of how the game really took advantage of the PlayStation's graphical hardware, even with it being a 2D game. There's other notable effects as well, like real-time shadows, fire, smoke, and really kick-ass water effects. Not taking any sunshine away from the graphics, but the audio side of this game is amazing as well. Not counting the aforementioned awful spoken dialogue, the rest of the audio is awesome. From weapon strikes, to explosions, to spell sounds, to moans and groans from enemies and bosses. I find nothing particularly annoying. The soundtrack is one of the best of all time. Composed by Michiru Yamane, almost every classical style is represented, as well as some newer fusion styles of music, from pipe organs, to rock guitars, to somber synthesizers. Everyone has their favorite tracks and areas in the game. Most fans will usually pick Lost Paintings as one of their favorites, and I'm right there with them. I also enjoy Requiem for the Gods as a close second. Throughout the game, you'll bump into certain characters, advancing the plot. Maria, now aged to a 20-something-year-old in the time span of 4 years, tells you she's looking for Richter. Alucard realizes the name, but informs her that he's now the master of Castlevania.
Of course, but
He disappeared about a year ago, and I'm sure he's here. If you see him, please let me know.
as you wish, my lady.
Thank you. So, you do know how to be a gentleman.
You run into Richter in the Colosseum, and a boss battle ensues.
Open hell's
Everything
gate.
points to Richter
Come
becoming
forth,
evil.
My servants. The scent of your blood. You're a Belmont. Crush this flea who invades my castle.
Later on, you battle Richter in Dracula's main throne room, and upon defeating him, you join Maria outside as the castle crumbles in the
War
distance.
between humans and vampires finally ends here. What need for the shepherd when the wolves have all gone, my time on this world has come to an end. So you made it.
Some
Oh,
dialogue
God.
is exchanged,
How
and the
did
game ends.
I'm sorry.
What an amazing game.
I see.
Looking back, it's one of my fondest
Thank you for
memories growing up
stopping him.
and playing games on the original
Do you
PlayStation.
suppose that this too
Everything
was
in this
fate?
game shows its high level of
So your
polish,
journey is over
and there aren't
as well,
many
then?
shortcomings to speak of.
No, not until
Trust
I
me,
learn
after
what
almost
caused
20 years of
Victor's
playing it,
madness.
I've looked.
I understand.
Whether you're new to the
Well, then,
Castlevania
may the
series,
gods guard you
or
along
have heard
the
a
way.
lot of buzz around this
Farewell.
game, pick it up,
You as well,
however you may,
Vanguard.
and play it.
Goodbye.
You'll see easily what everyone means. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, go check it out.
Just like the wind, I've always been drifting high up in a sky that never ends, through thick and thin.
So, you thought this review was over. No.
What have I done?
Now,
Thank you,
back in the
Alucard,
late
for
90s,
saving
there
Victor.
weren't a lot of information sources
Alucard.
except magazines for the most
Same
part.
Alucard who fought
The internet
alongside
was
my
just starting to
ancestor,
rise, so a
Trevor
lot of
Belmont?
gaming information either
That was
came
over
through
300
legitimate
years
sources
ago.
or word of
No
mouth.
time for small talk.
So back then,
Person
nobody
in that castle
knew
over
that the
there.
ending we all thought
Yes,
was the real
I
ending
think so.
really wasn't.
Maria,
That's right.
take Richter and leave
Everybody
him.
killed
I'll
Richter and
finish
thought the
this.
game was over, so a lot of people
Alright.
were upset because they
luck.
thought the game was so short. But it really isn't. Let's go back. Now, during the Richter fight, normally, back then, you just whip his ass and go from there. However, before this battle, if you equip the silver and the gold rings, which you find if you explore every room in the first castle, and is basically your goal in the first castle, and enter the castle center, a sequence will be triggered. And down below, Maria will give you the holy goggles, which allows Alucard to see beyond illusions. This simple item was the entire crux of what happened back then. By equipping them during the quote final boss fight with Richter, instead of killing him, you realize that you're supposed to attack and kill this floating green orb, which is controlling him, and is basically responsible for making him act like an asshole the entire game up until now. By destroying it, you release Richter, as he was being controlled this whole time by the Dark Priest Shaft, the same one from Rondo of Blood. By doing this, you progress not to the end of the game, but to a transporter, which teleports you to a second, inverted castle in the second half of the game. The inverted castle is just like the first one, except it's upside down. All the rooms are the same, but a lot of the enemies have been switched for different ones. Oh! I almost forgot to mention. Silly me. During your journey, you'll come across 3 different relics that allows Alucard to alter his physical form. These are Wolf, Bat, and Mist. While the basic power allows transformation, there are other powers that can be added to them which increases the capabilities of each form. Skill of Wolf, for instance, allows you to run through enemies like a speeding bullet, and Gas Cloud, while in Mist form, allows you to damage enemies. You know, between me and you, I always just thought of it as transforming into a giant fart cloud. I'll be honest. There are other relics to speak of, like the Leap Stone, which allows double jumping, and the Gravity Boots, which allow you to do a super jump, which comes in extremely handy in the second castle since you'll be doing it like 90% of the fucking time. Where was I? Oh, the inverted castle. So, once you arrive, you have another complete castle to run around in. The goal in the inverted castle, and indeed in order to face Dracula, is you'll have to collect his 5 body parts from various bosses. Yep. There's a throwback to Castlevania 2. So far we have throwbacks to, what? 6 previous Castlevanias all roll into this one? That's what I'm talking about. There isn't much in the way of exploration in the second castle, as it's basically the same thing you've already been through. A lot of the enemies are tougher, but since you've had time to level Alucard up, they shouldn't be that much trouble. Once you have all of Drac's parts together, head back to the castle central, where the floor, now the ceiling, will once again open, and you gain access to Dracula and the final battle.
Father.
There is some more dialogue, and Dracula turns into this giant mutated bat thing. The battle isn't very tough though, as previously mentioned, Galamoth is harder than Dracula. Kick his ass and the game is over. This giant beam of God shoots out of the sky and destroys the castle. Which I always thought looked cool, but you want to know what's crazy? You want to know? Do you? Okay. I literally, while writing this review, right here, right now in 2015, I just realized. Why does the beam destroy the normal castle and not the inverted one? Not to mention, where does the second castle go when the beam appears? It just disappears. I mean, if the beam is sort of like some final solution, holy wrath type of thing, shouldn't it be destroying the inverted castle since that's where Dracula is? Or is this supposed to be symbolic? I don't know, I'm analyzing that too much.
So you made it.
Anyways,
I'm glad you're
Alucard
alright.
meets up with Richter and Maria on the outskirts of the castle grounds, and some final words are spoken. Alucard explains that he's cursed and basically just leaves, with Maria and Richter going off to live a happy life together.
Want to go
Cue
after him,
music.
Marie?
Let's go. Everyone's waiting for us.
Yes. Let's get out of here.
Some people over the years have knocked the ending credits music, but I always liked it. It gave me a sense of accomplishment back then, and it brings back nice memories anytime I hear it now. Castlevania Symphony of the Night celebrates its 18th anniversary this year, and currently, there is a Kickstarter campaign ongoing right now, started by the one and only Koji Igarashi. The majority of us contribute this masterpiece of a game to, and he is starting a new game. This game, entitled Bloodstained, has already been backed by fans, and looks to be the spiritual successor to Symphony of the Night. We'll have to wait until 2017 to find out at the earliest. I already have my backing in for it, and I can't wait. If you've never played this game, and always wanted to, please do. When I say it's my #1 favorite game of all time, I really mean truly. There isn't a single thing I would change about this game, or a single negative thing I can find. Well, it would have been nice if the game was twice as long. But I don't have to worry about that now, as we have another shining gem on the horizon in the future. Thank you so much for watching this review. Thank you again if you're a subscriber. Go check this game out. You will not regret it.
Should I walk the path my words so bad I had? Is someone testing me every day I live? Well, the best in me is all I...
For some odd reason, even though this was the start of the quote Metroidvania type games, there are some weird rooms in the castle that seem to serve no purpose or have no function. And strangely, for whatever reason, these type of rooms were carried on into the subsequent Nintendo DS releases as just sort of these bare bones rooms with nothing in them or no enemies or really nothing going on in them. And I'm not sure why they did that or why it started in this one, but I don't know. I'll have to look into it for next time. In the original PlayStation version of the game, there is a special trick you can do when first entering the castle. If you restart the game and play as Richter, if you turn around and do your kick dash as soon as you enter the castle, if you time it right, you can get caught in the castle door and it'll push you down through the ground. If you look at the floor, as soon as you first enter the castle, you'll see this little panel there, like it's supposed to open up or something is supposed to be there. That's actually left over from the original Saturn version of the game. If you played the Saturn version or you're aware of it, there is another section of the castle that you can go down that trapdoor thing, and there's another area you can go into down there. For whatever silly reason, they removed it from the US PlayStation release, but it's still playable on their Saturn version if you're really interested. Oh my god, anytime I look in the telescope in the outer wall, it's like I'm instantly transported back to 1997. I'm 16 all over again. Doesn't matter how many times I play it, I get the same feeling every time. It's so awesome. Most of the weapons are pretty decent, and they follow a normal, power progression pattern. But luckily, when I was recording the video for this review, I got super lucky, and Chrysogrim happened to drop for me in the, I think it's Inverted Long Library is where that drops. And basically, if you get lucky and it drops, or you want to grind for it, go ahead, because once you get the sword, you can basically just run through every enemy in the game. And the majority of bosses left at that point become a joke, just because the weapon attacks so fast. The tricky thing is, though, that Galamoth still killed me even when I was using Chrysogrim. So, I mean, obviously, what I consider the best sword in the game still doesn't help against trying to beat that fucker. You still got to be careful if you're going to fight him.
My life.
No, Mother,
no,
please.
Please, no!
Yes, Alucard.
You're not my mother.
Never said such a thing.
What do you mean? Kill them and bring them happiness.
No, you're not my mother. What kind of demon?
It also kind of sucks because the Echo of Bat is such a cool power when in bat form. It basically gives you like sonar ability. Unfortunately, they only use it in one specific area for one specific purpose, and that's all you get to use it for. The only reason you need it or get to use it is to get the spike breaker armor in the lower portion of the castle, and that's it. Which really sucks because, I mean, if you look, even the effect they did for the sound wave traveling out and bouncing off of stuff is just really, really awesome. They did such a good job with it. I wish they would have used it more. I just love jumping on bells in the chapel. It's such a cool little detail thing. You know, they easily could have made the bells like static and not move. But just the fact that you can jump on them and they kind of like not only ring but move a little bit back and forth, you know, it just adds that much more realism to the game, which I think was always really cool. Another hidden Easter egg is that if you look in the background in one area of the Colosseum, I'm not sure of its name, but you'll actually see the first boss you face in Castlevania Dracula X. Back there, he's dead, but it's the same boss. You know, am I the only one who ever wished that the Bloodlines stage was like its whole entire game by itself? Am I the only one that always wished that were a possibility? I mean, wouldn't that have been cool if, like, this whole time for all these years and years and years that, like, there was some glitch or some secret way that you could unlock, like, an entire different Castlevania game that, like, went off on its own tangent with the Rondo of Blood series, but it was in the graphical style of Symphony of the Night, and we just never knew about it this entire time. I think I would probably freak if that happened, to be honest.
The same could be said of all religions.